You want to know the thing that pissed me off more than anything in my entire life today?
What?
I was copying change control numbers over because one of the things I manage at work is their change management process. And one of the tickets ended in 6-7. And before I could even stop myself, it popped into my head. And I got so mad at myself. I had not seen it. Like I've heard of this and like been seeing like the reels and memes talking about it. I had not actually seen it in the wild until this weekend where we were at a restaurant Sunday night and there was a kid outside just like doing it over and over again and was like getting really mad that his friends weren't like responding to it. So we go like, hey, 6-7. Hey. Hello and welcome to Flanagan's Wake, a Doof Media podcast using a dollhouse to track Mike Flanagan's every move. My name is Scott Daly, and joining me, as always, let's hope his glasses help him see some oncoming traffic. It's Matt Freeman. How's it going today, Matt?
I got LASIK, so I can always see the oncoming. Ah! That was me getting hit by a truck.
I think they got that, Matt. Very well done. And that was me laughing at it because
it was hilarious.
Yeah. This week on the show, we continue our exploration of Mike Flanagan's The Haunting of Bly Manor. It says Hill House in my script, and I keep just rolling that forward every week. So I'm going to change it right now so it's not going to happen again.
Nice.
The Haunting of Bly Manor. This is episode 4, The Way It Came. And the answer to that question, the way it came was truck.
Yep.
Truck.
It was delivered
truck.
Via truck.
So this episode, Matt sees us finally learn the backstory of our au pair, Dani, and the strange, bespectacled ghost appearing to her in mirrors. And I got to know, what did you think of this episode? How did you think of this one?
I really like this one a lot. I think this might be my favorite one. Overall, I felt like it had a lot of great creepy moments. It had a lot of great acting. It had a lot of. I really enjoyed the backstory. Essentially Dani's backstory, the way it came part of the story, where everything we find out really clicked in for me, like what we're doing with the themes of this show.
Sure, yeah.
I just kind of found myself being like, oh, I get it. Like, not only do I get what we're doing with Dani's character, but I feel like the show is coming together for me, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, and just I found it very entertaining and engrossing and all the things you want from good TV.
I agree with you. I watched this one 4 times. And I think, if I'm being honest with myself, I did not need to watch it 4 times in preparation for this episode. I was thinking, and I said this to you earlier, that like I bet my Netflix data looks like absolutely insane over these past 4 weeks, because I'm just like, all right, let's run the report. Let's analyze the Scott Daly Netflix usage data, and it's like he watched one episode of the show again multiple times within a 3-day span. What's going on?
Yeah, they probably have a graph that they're showing somewhere, and they're like, and what's that point up in the top left? That point all by itself. Well, that's the anomaly.
I don't even know what the algorithm can do with this data at this point, because it's like, well, we can't recommend him more Mike Flanagan shows because our records show he's watched all of them. What do we do? I got to pay attention to it and see what it's gonna throw my way. I'm gonna guess Stranger Things.
Yeah,
it's gonna throw everyone is getting Stranger Things, right? That'll be out soon.
I think so. Yeah.
We doing a podcast on that one?
Not to my knowledge.
Oh, look, I just logged into Netflix. At the top of my screen, Stranger Things, and then Anne Rice's interview with the vampire.
Well,
interesting.
That's obvious.
Yeah, definitely. All right, The Way It Came, Matt. This episode was also released in October of 2020. I don't know why I'm saying this part because it's the same day. It's the 9th of October. All 9 episodes were released that day, but I'm saying it anyway because it's in my script, and I can't not read what's written down here.
Right.
The episode was written by Laurie Penny. It was also story edited by Laurie Penny and Rebecca Klingel. It was directed by Liam Gavin. This is the first episode of 2 he will direct for the series, this one and the next one. It was edited by Ken Blackwell. That's a new editor we have here. And once again, it was shot by director of photography Maxime Alexandra. So once again, the only place we see Mike Flanagan on our opening credits is as an executive producer and, of course, created for television by. I do wonder, like, I don't know how this works. Like, show running is a very, like, weird and nebulous role. Like, there's no like official credit for showrunner. It's usually like created by is like the loose title, and how much they're involved and what they do in the show varies from showrunner to showrunner because it's kind of like a made up job. So I suspect that Flanagan was probably there for most of production. Maybe he wasn't like on set every single day for the shoots for the episodes he wasn't directing, but I suspect he was around quite a bit. And maybe he was just in the writer's room helping work on the script for the next one that was coming. I don't know, but I suspect he was there. But this episode was not shot by him, not edited by him, not written by him. So we just got to change it to Liam Gavin's wake.
That's right. We're changing it. I did think it was interesting because the bonfire scene, the bonfire scene, which we'll get to, I think in due time, really felt like a Mike Flanagan scene to me. As I was watching it, I was like, we've got the elements of sort of consecutive monologues, if you will. In a way that seems structurally natural, and then the monologues are well written, and they're an opportunity for the actor to do some acting, right? And Mike Flanagan loves those, obviously, and so that's just kind of struck me as like, this is that thing, this is that Mike Flanagan characteristic thing that we're doing, except he's not the writer. So that did make me think, like you're saying, like, well, maybe he's just kind of in the room and
I agree with you. That felt like a very Flanagan scene. I will say, and I do not mean this at all as a slight to director Liam Gavin, who I think did good work in this episode. And actually, I this name sounded familiar to me after I saw it in the credits, and I looked it up. And he actually directed a movie called A Dark Song, which is a film that I saw at Fantastic Fest all the way back in 2016. It's a story about a woman who has lost her child, I believe, and is like trying to perform like an evil like demon summoning rite to try to get an angel down to ask the angel to like bring her child back to her. It's a very good movie. I like the movie a whole lot. Great movie, really freaking metal as hell sometimes. I think it was like a midnight screening, and so I was like barely struggling to stay awake during it. It's just a type of movie that like wakes you right up. Was really good. However, what I will say is like this is the first time from a like just like a directing and style perspective that I felt that Mike Flanagan didn't direct this. Like I think we had the last couple episodes were directed by the first one, of course, was directed by Mike Flanagan, and then the next two, episode 2 and 3, were directed by Kieran Foy, who I thought did a really good job, and I thought there was like recognizable Flanagan isms in it. This episode to me felt different from that, and what I mean by that, essentially anecdotally, is like I didn't notice the direction of the show as much watching it this time. There weren't like the specific camera flourishes and things being done with the camera that I was like, and I was writing that down. Like I was looking over my notes right before the episode started, and I really didn't write anything down from like a cinematography or camera like perspective this episode, and maybe that's just because the episode is so chock full of theme and character stuff that's just where my brain was going. This is entirely anecdotal, and I don't want to blame the director at all for this, but it felt to me like the nicest way I could possibly say this is that like this felt like an episode of television to me, and I love television, so like that's not a slight at all, I don't think. It just did not feel like Flanagan-y, if you know what I mean.
I do. I mean, I kind of, it's interesting. I was having similar thoughts, although I didn't articulate them verbally. I guess it's funny because it's like, on the one hand, sometimes I feel like, you know the saying, good acting is acting that you don't notice.
Yeah.
Acting that calls attention to itself is actually, in some sense, less good acting.
Unless you're trying to get an Oscar, sure.
Unless you're trying, and that's the funny thing about that aphorism is it's like obviously not quite accurate because there's plenty of acting where you're just like, that was amazing acting, and it's like, oh, so it was bad, you mean? It's like, no, I literally I just said it was good. That's what I said what I meant, and I meant what I said. And I think the same kind of applies to direction, where it's like really good direction is kind of invisible. You just are like, I am just absorbing the show into my brain, and I'm not noticing the direction because the direction is not drawing attention to itself. And I feel like that's what this episode did. And then the second part of that is like, oh, so you mean that when the direction is noticeable, that means it's bad? No, I don't mean that. I just mean like it's not drawing attention to itself. It's making kind of the safe, unobtrusive choices, which are effective, which are conveying the story effectively. I mean, very I thought effective. that the sequence where her fiance gets out of the car, a lot of very careful shot placement choices there to convey that scene, right? But they're not shot choices where you think about them as they're happening, right?
Yeah. No, and I say this as an amateur non-filmmaker at all, right? That like an amateur critic, non-filmmaker. I bet you a director and a DP could sit down and watch this episode and tell you 300 things about all the stuff the director is doing. Maybe it's just we've literally spent the last 11 months studying Mike Flanagan, and so I've learned to notice his directorial flourishes, his choices, the like lenses and lighting and things like that he's working with his DP with, obviously. But and I just didn't notice that stuff in this episode. And I'm not saying the bad thing. I'm kind of in agreement with you from like a thematic and story position. I think this is the strongest episode so far. I think it's really good. I think all the characters are nailing it. It is, as you said, starting to show the form of like what the show is actually going to ultimately be. And it also is leading into episode 5, which not to lead you on too much, but episode 5 is a banger.
Okay,
that'll be next week, and it's a big one. But yeah, that's just something I was definitely thinking about. When I was thinking about this episode.
Maybe we can segue to talking about the flashback part of this episode, and even work this conversation about the direction into that, because
sure,
you know, there's a lot of. I think the one thing that jumps out to me about this episode, out of everything that I liked about it, is just there's a lot more kind of drama that is, especially for Dani, especially for the character of Dani, where she's, you know, in the present day storyline, her what she believes are, you know, hallucinations are getting more and more aggressive and disruptive. There's been this tragedy that's reminded her of her own bereavement or loss, or however you want to phrase that. And then we're also seeing her in the flashbacks go through this extremely stressful period of time where she's going to get married. She's having these extreme levels of doubt, but also, like she says, like she wants to want it. She wants to just be the kind of person who can just be with this guy who I think she likes him, right? I think
she loves him, just not in a romantic, sexual, like that kind of love. Like she loves him as a friend and maybe even a partner in life, but not in the way that he loves her, right?
I think she loves him partly even just because they've known each other for their whole lives, basically. And that in and of itself would be painful to lose someone in that position, and then, you know, add on the fact that she feels like she betrayed him and led directly to his death because he was getting out of the car to get away from her, right? So all kinds of reasons for her to feel horrible about this.
It's so wonderfully complicated, and that's what I love about it so much, is it's not just as simple as, hey, this girl is gay and has been in a relationship with this guy and then calls it off, but right when she calls it off is when he dies. Like, that's certainly a big part of it, but like there's so much more shit layered on top of this. There's, as you said, the idea that they've known each other since they were little kids. The idea that her home life has not been great. Her father died when she was very young. Her mother has a lot of problems. And so essentially Edmund's family has been her surrogate family. Edmund's mother has been her surrogate mother. And so we have all this this pressure and guilt about hurting these people that are her family, and about, if I end this, if I stop this, I lose all that. I lose what is essentially I lose my best friend, yes, but I also lose my mother. Essentially, I lose a woman that's been like a mother to me. Like, we have the whole scene where she gives her wedding dress, like how that communicates that so clearly. And there's also, like, I don't want to spend too much time like blaming Edmund for how things shake out in this, because I really think a lot of this is just not his fault and is just like things just happened. But there are little bits and pieces that I think the show does very, very like subtextually sometimes to enforce the way Edmund looks at this relationship and has looked at this relationship from the beginning, that maybe led into her feelings of being forced and kind of led along into it. So first of all, I think the opening sequence that defines the glasses, I think, is really great, because we have this sequence and that the glasses have been this thing. We see the defining characteristic of this guy has been the light of what it turns out is a car, a truck, reflected in his glasses right before he gets hit. And that is the version of him that is haunting her constantly. And so we open this episode on, this is him getting the glasses. And I don't know if you paid attention to like what that conversation was, which is she tries on the glasses and says, "You're blind. Can you even tell it's me?" And his response is, "Of course I can. I see you every day."
Blind.
And
You can tell it's me?
hey, turns out,
See you every day.
no, you don't. You don't actually see her. You don't see her. And again, part of this is not his fault. I don't want to blame him too much for this, but like, he does not see her. He does not fully see who she is. And I think the story of how they got together is one of those stories, Matt, that is like really cute. When like if two people are happy and committed and in love with each other, the story of how they got together is super cute. They were 10 years old. He kissed her, thought kissing led to pregnancy, and then he proposed to her. Oh, that was an adorable little kid story. And then he just kept proposing to her again and again and again over the years. Oh, this is an adorable little story. And finally they got old enough and they were ready, and they got engaged and they got married. And it's like the whole childhood sweethearts thing is this really adorable, loving story, unless one of those people isn't as into it as the other.
Yeah.
And then that's when you see the shades of control, discomfort. I one more thing and I'll let you talk. Like, when he tells the story, he says what he says is, "I think we are old enough to know what we want," which is, of course, a charged statement, and the camera immediately cuts to her having a very Victoria Pedretti look of, "Oh." Yeah. And then what he says is, "What I want is to be the man that gets to be with this girl, this beautiful, amazing girl." And I actually asked our friend Jody about this, because I was curious, like, when you switch from man to girl, like, is there like an implied, like, maybe microaggression or slight infantilization there, right? Like, in my mind, if I'm going to code man, it's going to be man, woman. It's going to be boy, girl, right? Yeah. And I please tell me if you think I'm reading too much into this, but like, it's a little bit of like, even the way he phrases it, he says, "What I want to be is the man that gets to be with this girl," not "what I want is to be with this girl," which is it's just like, it's a very specific way of phrasing that statement.
I agree with everything you're saying here. I mean, I feel so. My take is we don't really know a lot about this guy or who he is. We're given a sketch, right? Mm-hmm. And the sketch, basically, the details that we see really point toward him being a guy who has a kind of possessive and obsessive attitude toward her, and he's really in love with this idea of being married to her. And this story of them and who they are, and he needs that to be part of his story. Mm-hmm. I think to some degree or another, we're all guilty of this. Like, we see our lives going a certain way, and we have a plan. We have a plan for it, and if somebody messes up the plan, we feel like what he said. What he says in the story is, "Why are you doing this to me?" Mm-hmm. Right? Like, he doesn't get a lot of lines in this episode, actually. Yeah. But one of the few is when she is she's told him she doesn't want to get married. He's freaking out. I mean, his emotional reaction, I think, is at least something you can empathize with.
Sure.
But what he says is,
Why are you doing this to me?
why are you doing this to me? Right. And she's, we get what's going on with her. So we get like, she's not doing this to you. She's finally being honest.
Yeah.
Maybe she should have been honest before now.
Absolutely. Should have been.
Right.
Yeah.
Like there are probably fair, like, criticisms you could levy at her, I suppose. But his reaction is really telling. I think it says a lot about him and who he is, and that's why he's haunting her. Like I think you volleyed the ball to me. I'm volleying it back. Like that's literally why he's haunting her, is because he's this guy who's obsessed with her.
Yeah,
and he wants to own her.
Yeah, that's actually to quickly volley it back to you. Is your take on the haunting of Edmund, that, like the ghosts that exist in Bly Manor, this is a literal, this is a ghost that is haunting her, or is it a more metaphorical, this is the representation of her guilt and her feeling that he is still controlling her? Because I agree with you. I think either way, regardless of which way it is, I think the methods in which the ghost haunts her is very controlling. Like the funeral scene when he's just standing behind her with his hand, like just very possessively on her shoulder. Yeah. I think also, when she's standing at the sink in the present day and those gloved hands reach around her waist, like, again, things that, like, in the lens of this is a happy couple, that's an adorable, like, I'm showing my love for you. But but in the idea of she doesn't want to be in this relationship, isn't uncomfortable with it, it becomes very possessive, very controlling. Then there's also the fact that throughout the course of the show so far, he has only shown up in the mirror, as if a moment of, like, she only feels haunted by her presence when she is forced to look at herself in the mirror and look at and deal with herself and who she is, as when she feels his presence behind her. But that is going away the closer and closer she gets to some sort of happiness, romantic happiness with someone else. Every time Edmund shows up outside of a mirrored reflection is a moment of happiness for her. A moment of, like, the first time he showed up is when she grabbed Jamie's hand right before Jamie left. Then he showed up again, where she's in the kitchen washing her hands and like her and Jamie are eyeing each other. And then, of course, the big moment is when they're making out in the greenery. Every one of those times he's been in physical form then. Yeah.
Right. I think just to remind us, the first time that he appeared not in the mirror when they were holding hands, like, or when Dani grabbed her hand, like you said, not only does he appear outside of the mirror, but then he gets, like, sucked violently into the house.
Yeah.
In a like episode ending crescendo. And that to me was like, okay, something shifted. Like he went from being a ghost who is sort of haunting her and maybe in some sense a more metaphorical ghost, to being a literal ghost who's literally in the house now. And like that was like maybe a moment where his revenant became so enraged by the idea that she was going to move on beyond him that he became, powerful, and then the house has snagged him.
Yeah.
Perhaps I'm being far too literal about this, but him being, like, violently sucked into the house did jump out to me as, like, okay, that means something. They didn't just do that for funsies.
Yeah. So much of this flashback works so well on me. First of all, I just want to say the choice to set this in the 80s continues to reveal itself, because the music in this episode in the flashback sequences is just great. We have Cyndi Lauper all through the night. We have Higher Love playing in the engagement party scene. It's just all just great 80s music. I'm not a kid of the 80s. I was born in 85. So for much of it, my part of the 80s, I was alive. I was not consciously aware of my existence, but man, do I love 80s music, Matt. I don't know when that exactly happened to me, but I love it.
It happened to me at my first job when somebody had left a radio to just the 80s station forever, perpetually.
Yeah.
And I really came to like that music.
Yeah. But, like, there's all these kinds of, this is what I mean by, I think the show is so sharp and well written at times, is there's all this stuff that's really helping us define Dani, and it is simultaneously providing new information, but also matching information to what we know about her already. Like we have that moment where she's talking, where Edmund's mother is leading her into the room to show her the wedding dress, and she's saying to her is like, "Oh, how's work going?" She's like, "Oh yeah, good. There's 2 kids that really need my help," and the mom just kind of casually says, "You always seem to spot the kids that need you the most." And then she gives her the speech about like making sure you're putting your own oxygen mask on first, which we learn is something that Edmund tells her, and that's essentially a version of that is what she tells to Flora when she's kind of talking Flora back from spending so much time trying to protect other people. But like it helps define Dani as this person that kind of just generally puts everyone else before herself, and that really helps define how she got herself into this position in the first place, right? Like she like maybe she as a little kid she recognized Edmund as this kid that just needed her. And like the story, once again, a really adorable story, unless someone's feeling trapped in a situation they don't want to be in, is her mom saying, "You marched right up to me and said, 'Hello, I'm going to be Edmund's new best friend.'" It's adorable, right? But maybe that was because she saw something that he needed someone. He needed this person, and she will continue to put herself put him before herself, and continues to do that, and continues to do that, and continues to do that. And the one moment that she chooses not to do that she chooses to put herself first, instantly he dies. Instantly. Like the universe says, "Oh, okay, you want to be selfish? Boom." Yeah. That's what your selfishness gets you. That's what getting what you want gets you. Not only are you going to have to leave him, but he's going to fucking die. And because we have this idea of dead doesn't mean gone, one of the big themes that we're really reinforcing in this episode, you don't even actually get to escape from this whole thing. Like I love the idea that, because I think one of the instant reactions you have to this whole thing is like, "Oh, well, that solves that problem." she's feeling guilty about this whole thing. Now none of his family has to know that they broke up right before it happened. It's neat. It's easy. And of course the truth is anything but, right? It's the idea of it and the guilt of it and all of it haunts her constantly.
Yeah. There are elements, I agree with all that. That's great. There are elements like that I haven't quite figured out how they're going to come together, because I don't think they have come together yet. What I mean is we have this increasingly obvious parallel between, the two au pairs, where they both had an obsessive lover who was controlling and possessive of them. Different dudes, obviously, different sort of magnitudes of their badness. At least Edmund doesn't seem like overtly villainous and dark and manipulative in the way that Quint did.
Yeah.
But in any case, I'm like, I do wonder, like, I think we're the purpose of the parallel that I'm seeing is like we do see these two women who were very intelligent, very capable, full of life, and giving of themselves, and then they were both sort of tragically that giving nature was taken advantage of by these selfish, just greedy men who that they saw that energy, and they were like, I want that. I want that to be mine. I want to own that.
Yeah.
And whether or not Dani is going to end up, basically having a parallel track to Jessel, it remains to be seen. And by which I mean, is she going to die tragically too?
Well, at least with Dani, we have Jamie, right? Which is, I think, in talking last week about our different kinds of love and the good kind of love and the bad kind of love, that there's a lot of work in this episode to show Jamie as like an incredibly empathetic, compassionate, and kind partner that, a different person, when you're in the middle of making out with someone and then they like freak out, would get pissed off and be like, "Man, fuck this. Like, what's wrong with you? Are you crazy?" And Jamie is so patient and so kind and so caring with her that it's like, okay, maybe this is the way out ultimately. But as the episode ends, Edmund is still there, right? She burns the glasses, the symbolic kind of trying to let go of the dead, but he's not going anywhere. He's still standing there in the flesh.
Yeah.
Quote unquote.
Right.
I like what you said though, because that ties into what Hannah says about Rebecca Jessel at the bonfire scene, where she is pouring one out for Miss Jessel, and what she says is she was brilliant, she was beautiful, and she was punished for it. Why does the world always punish brilliant, beautiful women? Right. And so that's kind of, there's an obvious parallel to Dani here, helped along by the direction choice to like pretty consistently cut to one shots to close-ups of Dani as she absorbs these speeches. Like the same thing with Owen's speech as well, which, by the way, I think there's another parallel happening in this episode specifically. We have two deaths that are the center of this episode, Edmund and then also Owen's mother. And I think we're doing some interesting compare and contrast between those as well, which we can get into in a bit.
Yeah. Well, you're right. Although I don't know that I thought about that until you pointed out just now. Like, I mean, the most obvious thing that jumps to mind is that there's a relief that comes along with this person's death, even though he obviously did actually love his mother. She did actually love this childhood friend of hers, but their being dead is frankly more convenient, which is kind of like, it's like a horrible thing to say and a horrible thing to think, but the person still feels that relief, and that relief feels horrible, and it's this mess.
Yeah,
right?
like the idea that we can sit here and say like, oh, like just kind of that solves everything for both of them. That's like Owen is a person that hates it at Bly, came back here, kind of put his life on hold, and now that problem has solved itself. But of course, he is still distraught and destroyed by the death of a very important loved one. And I think the same thing with Dani, who has this is neatly solves the problem she was having, but it is still haunting and destroying her. Right. I think obviously there's differences between these two deaths, right? One is quick and sudden. The other is a prolonged fight with a disease, a horrible disease. And so like those are different. And I think, speaking of dead doesn't mean gone, I think it is clever the ways in which this episode is using that phrase
doesn't mean
in
gone.
Many different kinds of meanings, right? Like I think there's a positive meaning of that phrase, which is essentially what Dani is trying to explain to Flora in the graveyard of like, your parents never really leave. They're always like with you. They're not gone. And then Flora's like, no, they're not here, because Flora is of course talking literally to all this stuff. Like, no, they're not here. But so the good idea of dead doesn't mean gone is that the people that we lose in our lives stay with us, and we carry them with us by remembering them, and they're a part of us. And then of course there's a little meaning of dead doesn't mean gone, as there are ghosts in this house. And then the other flip side of that is the Owen part of that, which is I think one of the most interesting ideas of dead doesn't mean gone, is the idea that Owen's mother was gone before she was dead. In this case, dead doesn't mean gone is because she was already gone. The person who she was, the woman who she was, ceased to exist essentially because of this terrible, terrible disease. And so like many different angles on the same phrase, I think is really interesting.
Yeah, I love that. Especially what you said about Flora. So I feel like the first episodes that we've gone over, the first 3 episodes really have overall been more Miles focused. Flora has had her scenes, obviously.
Sure.
But she has largely seemed, what's that word, sphinxish, in her just like, I'm just a charming little girl. What do you mean? What are you implying? Everything is normal. And I think we begin to see kind of see between the cracks of Flora, because there is a death, and this kind of reminds her of the seriousness and her own loss. So we see more, some of the childishness drops away, because I mean, some of it is that she is a child, but some of it is a facade of childishness that she's wearing to cover her pain. And some of that falls away. Like, I think that exact moment where she said, like, I forget, she says it in this very proper way, but she's like, I'm sorry, but they're not.
Yeah.
Like she's being kind of like polite but firm, that her parents are indeed not here, and indeed it's only the bad ghosts. It's only the ghosts that you don't want to stick around that are the ones who do stick around. Which, again, that's just a sentiment you can take really metaphorically, where it's like, we're not literally haunted by literal ghosts, but very often it's like our regrets and things unsaid and mistakes and bad relationships that haunt us in our lives a lot more. We spend a lot more time dwelling on those things than we dwell on like how much our parents love us or whatever. Like how much of your day do you you spend sitting around thinking about that, right?
Oh, constantly, every moment. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So like that, all that tied together by Flora as this, wise beyond her years little girl who is really going through it, and just being really. I just felt for her a lot in this episode. I guess there were like every moment she's on the screen, I like my heart is aching for this little girl. And there's some little like note in the performance that's different where you're seeing this like almost like watery quaveriness that she's keeping a lid on with the charming kid act. But it's there,
Yeah, I mean the "you're not dying," speech at the dinner table where she says, I thought when my loved ones died, I thought I was dying too, but turns out I was just feeling immense, incredible sadness that felt like dying. That is a very kind of wise by beyond her years expression to have there. I really did like it. I mean, just like the dead doesn't mean gone thing. Again, this is like really clever writing in that like both characters are talking past each other or talking about different things, but they just don't realize it. Like when Flora asks the question, is Owen's mother going to be at the funeral? Like she is speaking literally. Does she mean like she is like, is the ghost of Owen's mother going to be present at her own funeral? And then it's like, oh yeah, she will be. Like, yeah. And then when Flora says, oh, my parents weren't at their funeral, what she says is they died very far away, and then we didn't actually have them in the boxes. So Dani thinks she's just talking about like the body physically at the funeral, but Flora's talking about the ghost, talking about the presence, talking about the thing that lives on when you go. And it's just like, it's very clever. It's very clever the way it does it, that like none of these characters, like there's never a moment where you could argue, why isn't she questioning her about what that thing she said means? Because like, I think Dani just has a very clear, this is a child and she's trying to process stuff, explanation for everything that Flora says.
Right.
Like another great example of this is when Dani sits Flora down and says, have you ever seen Peter Quinn in the house before? Do you and Miles let him in? And she answers technically truthfully, which is that no, we don't let him in. That's not how it works. He's just here. Like, and that's, again, she didn't lie to her. That's technically true. But like also Dani doesn't press her on, well, what do you mean by that? Because it's just Flora-ish enough where it's like, yeah, okay, whatever.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's one mystery about Flora is like, how is she being arch because she is a child and doesn't understand the question being asked, or is she being so obscure because she's quite a bit more clever than she portrays herself as, and so she's constantly intentionally carefully saying things that are technically true but actually a little bit manipulative? Because that to me, I mean, that would be kind of like the way Miles is. I think Miles is, my interpretation of the show currently is like Miles is a bit older and Miles has a bit more world weariness, and he's aware like, okay, there are not supposed to be ghosts. This is a bad problem that we are facing here.
Yeah.
Whereas for Flora, I think she has just kind of normalized it, but I think maybe her and Miles clearly talk about this amongst themselves, and so I think he at least has gotten her to understand, like, we need to not tell the adults about the ghosts.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I wonder, like, in none of those flashbacks with Rebecca Jessel, did we see them talk to her about any of the ghosts they're seeing? Presumably before Rebecca Jessel died, there were still ghosts there, right? So I don't know when they exactly decided to keep this information to themselves and when not. Maybe we'll find that out later. But yeah, I mean, I think one thing we should say here is I think we finally got enough information in these 4 episodes to kind of shed some light on some of what's going on. So we have Flora's dollhouse, and I think we get enough information that I can finally just say this on the show now. Flora uses her dollhouse to track both the people and the ghosts present in the house. Where the doll is in the dollhouse is currently where the ghost is in the house. So that makes for very ominous realizations when you realize that like Peter Quint's ghost is like perpetually hovering right above Miles's bed. And that Miss Jessel is kind of always around where Flora is. And then of course we got all the other ghosts we've seen. And then we have the lady in the lake, the one that lives under the dresser. In this episode, we see Flora looks into her dollhouse. She sees Dani is gotten out of her bed because the Dani doll has moved out of her bed. And she looks over and sees that the lady in the lake is in the house. She's in the forbidden eastern wing or whatever. And that's she gets Miles, and then they rush to distract Dani as this ghost ominously walks down the stairs and out the door. And so I think we know enough to now say the locking in the closet in the first episode was them trying to prevent Dani from coming in contact with that ghost. That like the sequence of events in that episode is Dani is walking across the room. She trips over the ghost or the doll of the lady in the lake. Flora sees the doll not under the dresser, freaks out, calls Miles, and then they lock her in the closet. So I think we can finally partially understand what's going on here. Now, the exact mechanics of like, okay, well, how are the dolls tracking where all the ghosts are is not something we technically have revealed to us. I will say we see the doll-faced ghost next to the dollhouse in one of those like hidden ghost shots when I think it's near the very end of the episode when Dani says goodnight to Flora after the whole lady in the lake walking by her scene, and we see that doll-faced ghost there. So maybe what we're supposed to take away from this is the ghosts of the house are helping track and are like ghostly moving the pieces as they move around the house.
And some of the ghosts are more, friendly, right? The doll-faced ghost, if I had to guess, I would say is the one that we typically see Flora sort of talking to. Although I think there's also evidence that it could be Rebecca Jessel because of the thing with the earring, or the hairpin, or
Well, I mean, technically, we haven't seen Flora really fear any of the ghosts, right? Like, we know of the soldier, who like none of the ghosts have done anything in the show yet.
Right, in the show, right. So that's the mystery to me, right, at this point, is like, well, then why are they doing this whole rigmarole to make sure that, this is 2 times now they have had to do an elaborate song and dance to keep Dani from running into this lady in the lake ghost. And it's like, why? Like, what's going to happen if she sees her? Are we meant to assume that this is a viciously deadly ghost? I mean, I think yes, because Rebecca Jessel did die by drowning in the lake, right?
Yeah.
So I think
she suicide, man. She walked in there by herself.
I think we assume from the beginning that she committed suicide in the lake, but then you think about it and you're like, well, there's a deadly ghost that always goes to the lake, and so we're putting things together, starting to put things together. Yeah. They're gonna have to, and it also, these are just little niggling things like why do they have to keep it a secret? Why can't they just tell the adults? And it's like, well, first of all, the adults are going to think you're crazy, but also there's an actual danger involved here where maybe they did. This is maybe something I said a previous episode. Like maybe they did try to get help from Rebecca Jessel, and that was what killed her, and they feel guilty about this.
Yeah, that could be.
But yeah, lots of like it's very very fun point in the show where we have enough of the setting elements arranged that we can start to have a conversation like this where we're theory crafting, right? Like you can imagine if this is one of those week to week shows that comes out, then people would be posting their theories about what the different ghosts are doing and what. That's why I don't get why they don't post these week, like these are clearly sort of well structured shows with a linear progression of mysterious elements over time that would really lend themselves to week to week viewing.
You're never going to get an argument out of this. I understand the binge model became very popular because of just like because people, I mean, it was just this new thing that we can never do before. What do you mean a whole season of a show comes out at once, and everyone loved it? But 10-15 years later, I'm firmly in camp. Week to week is the way to go. That having time to watch an episode, process it, talk about it, which is essentially what we're creating water cooler conversations here with microphones, and then getting to go into the next episode having processed it, I think just is the best way to do this. And I think binging a show you've already seen, like that's the binge model in Netflix got popular because people were binging shows that they had seen before, right? It's like you're binging sitcoms like The Office over and over again and just tearing through them. You're binging Lost, you're binging these kind of things. And that, I think that makes sense for a show that you're rewatching. But I think yeah. I don't like this model. I'm glad most of the streamers have moved away from it. Netflix is one of the big ones still holding out.
Yeah. In any case, this is a good point. Pretending since I am effectively going through it 1 week per episode, I get the experience of being the viewer who is saying, "Oh, what is the significance of who's moving the dolls and why is the lady in the lake going to the Forbidden West Wing specifically? What's in the Forbidden West Wing that why is this related to why it's forbidden? Other than the fact that it's like the bedroom of the man and lady of the house. Maybe she was the prior lady of the house and she was murdered there, or she's probably murdered in the lake, I'm going to guess, but but something happened there. Anyway, I'm free associating, obviously, but that's it gets fun. It's fun when there's enough of a basis that you can free associate and not just feel like you're making things up.
I agree with you. This is where we start to really get into the stride of things and get to start talking about these things and how it takes several instances and occurrence of things to allow you to start to build themes and main ideas of like what the show is doing and what the show is ultimately saying. And we can only just kind of shoot in the dark with the first couple of episodes. Here now in episode 4, getting close to about halfway through the show, and we can finally do these things. And it's pretty fun seeing you reach for these ideas. With that in mind, Matt, what's going on with Hannah Gross?
So she's got some little hallucinations. I guess the one thing that I was going to say a minute ago with her is that we do see Owen. We kind of catch like the end of a conversation that presumably started off screen, where he's kind of broaching to her the idea of like, hey, maybe you and me run away to Paris and live the life. And not to rewind the conversation, but this really tied into what you were saying a bit ago about like you think that the sort of burdensome person dying is going to solve the problems, but actually no, because her forcing him to stay in this town was creating this opportunity for him where he could spend all this time with this woman that he really likes. Yeah. But now he kind of he doesn't have the excuse anymore, you could say. So it's like, well, either I'm going to stay here and like formally and intentionally abandon my dream of being a chef, or you can come with me to Paris. And she just does not seem like she's going to be into that. Like
that was what I was going to ask you. What was the vibe you got that she doesn't respond to the question in that scene because Jamie and Dani come back just in time to escape her to save her from having to answer it. Yeah. But I agree with you. It sounds like you think that that's not going to be something Hannah Gross wants to do.
She seems to have, first of all sorts of just sentimental attachments to this place and to the children, but then also like whatever it is that's keeping her lighting those candles is keeping her tied to this place. I think she feels this like obligation. Where that obligation comes from, is it guilt? Is it a lost love? I don't know.
I mean, we know she was married, right? Like we've been calling her Mrs. Jessel because the show has been calling her Mrs. Jessel, and here
Mrs.
finally,
Gross.
Jesus, I keep doing that, Mrs. Gross. And finally, in this episode, she says the last time she went to town or was in the church in town when she's saying she doesn't want to go to the funeral was when she got married. And so, okay, yes, she was married. We have not seen Mr. Gross. So maybe, and we do know that she's flirting pretty hard with Owen. So yeah, I think the assumption is that Mr. Gross isn't around anymore. So maybe that's the answer to the fourth candle thing, right? We had this conversation in the first episode. She's lighting 2 candles for the Lord and Lady Wingrave. She's lighting 1 candle for Rebecca Jessel. We definitely know she's not lighting a Peter Quint candle, but there was a 4th one there. Maybe that's for her lost husband. We don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. I mean, it seems like a safe assumption for now, right?
Yeah.
And I think there's low key supernatural stuff happening with her, with Dani, obviously, with the mirror ghost, and with the house in general. But the point being, like, they all kind of have their own individual hauntings.
Yeah.
Not Owen and not Jamie, as far as we know, but
yeah.
About half of the adults, yeah.
Jamie definitely does have something going on. I mean, it's not a haunting, as you say, but like, I thought it was really interesting. I was trying to remember as she stands up to do her bonfire story and ends up talking about the Lord and Lady Wingrave. I was like, are we going to learn like what's her deal? Because it seems like she references the experiences she's had before that have shaped her, but we haven't really seen them. I mean, it's very possible that like because she chooses the Lord and Lady Wingrave as her people to remember. Like, it's very possible she felt a very close attachment to these people. I maybe we assume they are the ones that originally hired her to be the gardener. And so maybe she had a really close attachment. She cared deeply for these people. And maybe the reason why she blew up about the roses is because those were Lady Wingrave's roses, right? And she doesn't want anyone messing with Lady Wingrave's roses. And that's kind of the guilt and the mourning that she's carrying with her. But yeah, no, that's just guesses at this point.
And I think it's conspicuous that we don't really know anything about her backstory. I mean, we know very little about Mrs. Gross's backstory, and we know more about Mrs. Gross's backstory than we know about Jamie's.
Yeah.
So it all feels it's very funny to me because it always reminds me of her introduction, where her introductory scene is this kind of like off kilter, like, who's she? Where'd she come from?
Yeah.
And then we found out that's sort of an accident, but it feels like an accident that works so well with her character, where you're just like, yeah, where did she come from? I mean,
yeah.
How long has she been here? Has she been here for a couple of years, or since she was 12? We don't know at all.
We got a comment from a person who actually had trouble with what I'll call like the very kind of quick turn from her being so indifferent to Dani that she doesn't even introduce herself to, in the next episode, expresses serious concern for her well-being, to then expand onto increased attraction, to then in episode 4 we've gotten to where they are just actively seeking each other out. And like, I understand that idea, that sentiment of like, how did this person go from being so utterly uninterested in this person that she's not even going to say hi, to suddenly like, I like her and want to make out with her. That does happen very quickly. However, I do think there's enough in the kind of subtext of the show that like, maybe she, like, we saw she was up there greeting Miss Jessel on Miss Jessel's first day, and maybe they became close in a friendship kind of way, not in a relationship kind of way, but maybe like she put a lot of emotional energy into this woman who came, this au pair who came, and she died horribly and sadly, and maybe she's like, I don't want to do this again. I don't like losing people. I don't like people dying. People at this place keep dying. And so my original tack with this new nanny is going to be, I'm just not going to deal. I'm just not. That's my plan. And then Jamie just kind of can't help but like come around on her because she's impressed with her. Like that's the one through line from the very beginning, after the introduction is just like, oh, this one's a little bit different. Oh, this one's doing things a little bit differently. Oh, look at this. Look how she's punishing the kids in this very specific way. The manual labor, she like suffers no fools. Like, I think when Miles, well, we see that once again this episode when Miles like starts demanding wine, and Dani's response is just like, nope, and she just like points, and just like, nope, get out of here. Yep. I loved Hannah Gross's like, I really do love that woman. It was a great moment. But I mean, that's, you can kind of see. So I agree generally with the sentiment that because of the way we had to do the introduction, it does feel like this very quick change in Jamie's character, but I think it ultimately is supported by her characterization and what little we know about her so far. And also just like the show does put in work to be like, oh, I'm impressed by this woman. And that idea that being impressed turns into attracted, turns into, that you could just see that path.
Yeah. I like that. I really like that reading. I think my reading was sort of like simpler in that it's just like, well, being attracted to someone might look like being kind of standoffish at first.
Yeah.
So maybe she was just literally attracted to her from the get, but living in the world that they live in the 80s, it wasn't quite as straightforward to act on these things, but she feels kind of intimidated and standoffish about it. So I don't know. I kind of like your reading better than mine because it ties into a lot more elements of the story that we have now been introduced to. But it's also, I mean, it does kind of seem in retrospect like she has always liked this woman, and then finding out that like, oh, you like me too. Wow, that's so surprising that I'm gonna like drive away in a panic now because I don't know how to react to this. And then the next time we see her, that like she has kind of gotten control of herself. I found that all sort of human and relatable.
I mean, I will say it seems like Jamie is much more comfortable and confident in her identity than Dani is. At this point, like she seems to know who she is, but you're right, because we know so little of her. We don't know, like, has she ever been in a relationship, right? Like, is this a woman who found out she was attracted to women at a young age, but then just like has through circumstance or just the reality of her situation, just never been able to actually, like act on that in any way.
Yeah.
And so, you see a new woman walks in the door, you're kind of instantly attracted to her. There's some spark there, some like ineffable thing, the chemistry of it all. And your initial reaction to that, your gut reaction to that is stay away. Like, this is dangerous. This is like, I'm not gonna be able to have this. And so I think that's there. I think you're right.
Cool. Yeah, I think it's all kind of there. Yeah, she's been a background character, but I feel like we're definitely going to get a Jamie episode, or at least find out more about who she is and where she comes from at some point.
I mean, she keeps sticking her tongue down Dani's throat. I mean, I think she's going to be thrust into the foreground of the show.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a bunch of episodes left, so
yeah,
we did talk about that.
I just want to say we haven't talked about her very much for the reasons you're pointing out, but I really love this performance. I love this actor. Amelia Eve is doing a really good job with this. I don't know, like I find the insistence on calling Dani Poppins, just endlessly endearing, and just like I really like it. I really like it. And it's like she knows exactly when to use it in the cute ways to use it, and then when things are serious, she always just switches back to Dani. I like her. I think her and Victoria Pedretti have a lot of chemistry. Like, you buy their attraction, in spite of everything that is going on with Dani, who just looks terrible throughout a lot of this episode. Like the one cut to her sitting at the dinner table where she's just kind of zoned out, and like. Yeah. And you're just like, oh my God, dude, you do not look good.
Yeah, right. So I want to talk about Miles in a second, but let's go back to Dani for 1 second here, because we almost forgot that this is like a central mystery of the show, is what is she running away from, right? That's what we open the show with, is this question, what happened? And we began to put it together, and now we just totally know that she feels this horrible guilt and shame and every other negative emotion imaginable, but basically about this guy's death and her role in it. And then on top of that, the fact that she either is being haunted by him or she's hallucinating, which is, kind of 6 of one, half dozen of the other from the first person point of view. And then she runs away, and like I love that scene when I thought you might like to have when his mom comes to bring her the glasses. First of all, great scene, because she's like, I can't stand to look at them, but I also can't stand to throw them away. So here.
So yeah, here, please take this burden on for me.
Yeah. Oh my God. Horrible. And so she takes the glasses, and you can see that she's just doing extremely poorly and preparing to run away. And then she runs away, and we kind of see when we meet her at the beginning of the show, she's a little wobbly. She's a little frazzled, right? And over the course of the show, we've seen her become more confident, more centered, like she's fallen into her role as the au pair really, really beautifully.
Yeah.
And then what this episode did is it linked up like, oh yeah, this is who she was when she got here. She's rattled. Mm-hmm. She's shaken. She's traumatized. She had managed to kind of get past all that, but now it's reasserted itself in her life.
Yeah.
With this death and kind of with the reemergence of the ghost as a more active force.
Yeah, and just the audacity to think that she deserves to be happy in any way, shape, or form. It, like is what's really like that seems to be like her constant struggle of like every moment. Like I think she says it in the when she lights the candle. One of the most heartbreaking moments of the entire episode is Hannah leaves her a match to light one of the candles in her altar of the dead, and then Carla Gugino comes in with her narration and says that Dani is not lighting a candle in remembrance of the dead, but I think, gosh, I wish I had written down lit a candle for the moments that she didn't remember the dead, for the moments that she allowed herself to forget and think that she could forget the dead, and that's heartbreaking. That like what she's doing here is saying, I am apologizing for having the audacity to think that I could think of a time where I'm not thinking of you constantly, and that's awful. That's awful.
Yeah, just emphasizes how much of this for her is this crushing guilt.
Yeah. I do want to say, like, speaking of the title of the episode, The Way It Came, like, this is actually one of the ones that I think has gotten closest thematically to what the short story is doing here, right? Like, so for a reminder for the audience out there that did not read the Henry James story, The Way It Came is a story about two people that experienced ghosts, and then one of them, the man, eventually got with the narrator, but then one of the other women died, and the narrator can't get over the fact that she feels that her fiance is having some ghost relationship with the ghost of this dead woman. And I think, like, thematically, we have Dani and Jamie trying to start something, trying to form some sort of relationship, and this ghost, this presence, is inescapably in Dani's life. Is there, and yeah, I mean, like, it plays out much differently from the short story itself, but like thematically, just this idea of a relationship being halted and prevented by the existence of this spiritual link to a person who is gone, is right in line with that short story.
Right. I think what we agreed was that the short story would best be adapted as an 80s romantic comedy.
Yes.
Whereas this is obviously a very different tone. But yeah, another thing we said is that anyway, for me, that was, I think one of my favorite, perhaps my favorite of the short stories in the whole sequence. It's quite surprising, funny, just really enjoyed talking about it with you. It really kind of had a lot of meat to it, despite being like pretty short and really quite simple in its concept. But yeah, I like that. I don't know if I even put it together quite the way you did, but yeah, it's like there in both cases there's this idea that there is a ghost coming between our living characters. We feel very, very differently about that in this case, because in this case we want this ghost to go away. This ghost is annoying and bad, whereas in my opinion, in The Way It Came, it was the narrator who was annoying and bad and should have gone away. But that's okay.
It is like Flanagan and his team very, very accurately, I think, nailing the feeling that a lot of the stories create of this kind of woman teetering on the edge of sanity. But like that was very, very present at the turn of the screw. We've talked about that. Very, very present in that story, the way it came as well. I think the difference here, of course, is that like through context, we are allowed to see that Dani's struggle with sanity has nothing to do with the fact that like she's like making things up or seeing things that aren't there, and it's just really like these ghosts, these things, the guilt and the real ghosts that exist in this place are really just driving her crazy. And so it reads as kind of completely different from Henry James's story, but in a way that still feels true to like what the story was doing in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I mean that's really interesting because in the way it came, no, sorry, in Turn of the Screw, in Turn of the Screw, she is, the governess is sort of desperate for a a worthy marriage with a good man.
Mm-hmm.
And like it's a huge plot point in the beginning of the story that she like essentially falls in love with the guy who in this story would be, Wingrave.
Henry Wingrave, yeah.
Henry I don't remember if his name is Henry Wingrave in the book, but in any case,
it's not.
Okay. So she basically falls in love with him, and then he's like, I have a job for you. And she's like, of course I will do the job. This will be a great excuse for us to get to know each other. And he's like, condition 1 of the job, you will never contact me again. And then she takes it because she's a Victorian woman. But it's like horribly crushing for her. But it like, so point being, like, it's sort of because of a man that she's there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in this case, it's the same thing, but it's flipped, right? It's because of a man that she's here, but it's actually because she's like running away from the guilt of having left this man rather than like wanting to, pursue this man.
Yeah.
But like it carries the same like haunting tragedy of the situation though, where she feels hopeless and lost, just for very different reasons.
Yeah, totally. It's great stuff, and it like Hill House before it, I think manages to feel true and in line with the adaptive work while obviously doing something just kind of entirely different.
Mm-hmm.
So you said you wanted to talk about Miles, so let's talk about Miles.
Yeah, so a lot less of Miles in this episode, with the big exception of him just having had quite enough of this bullshit, and
he needs a drink, man. He needs a drink.
He needs a drink, right? I think like my feeling on that scene, tell me if you felt the same, is like, we know that this kid has been through hell. Like his life is so stressful. No one else has any idea.
Yeah.
Except Flora, obviously. And he's just like, God damn, I need a drink. And he's just like, why can't you people treat me like an adult?
Yeah.
I'm shouldering more of a responsibility than all of you. And then they're like, nope, we're still going to treat you like a child. And he gets really angry, but then like once he is thoroughly refused, he's just like, all right. and he just kind of like sucks it up and goes to bed. Like, that's one of the things about Miles, is he's just, yes, this was like a lapse in his like composure.
Yeah.
But he's just such a good kid. He's so like self-sacrificing and loving and like actually willing to go the full distance to protect people. Yeah. So it's not like you think any less of him for having this outburst. If anything, you think a little bit less of the adults for not indulging him in this one moment.
Oh, really? So they should have given him a glass of wine? Is that what
I should have given him half a glass of wine. Half a glass.
He didn't want it watered down, Matt. He didn't want any water. He wanted a glass of wine.
I think they could have just given him, the glass half full. That would have been fine. Fine with everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I mean, I think it's one of the things that Dani says to him when she comes and speaks to him in his room is this idea of, because of your circumstances, you've had to grow up, right? And I think she says that without even knowing the full extent of it, right? Yes, he lost his parents, but also he and Flora are like basically playing like guardians of the house. Like Flora has this dollhouse right next to her bed that is like incessantly checked to make sure everyone's okay, everyone's where they should be, everyone's safe. And this is basically the charge they've taken upon themselves to do this. We don't know the full extent of this, right? We think that the lady in the lake ghost could be dangerous, as you said. We don't know about any of the other ghosts. We don't know about, like, we've seen that she's obviously Flora's not at all concerned about the ghost in the attic. Doesn't seem concerned about the doll face ghost or our friend the plague doctor, who is always hovering around. Our friend the soldier, who is always hovering around. Doesn't seem worried about those. We don't know about Jessel and Quint yet, though, right? Do they serve as a threat? Are they dangerous? Don't know. But they've taken this burden upon themselves, and they're doing this. So, like, not only have they experienced horrible tragedy that no kid should have to experience at their age, but yeah, now they feel like they've been shouldered with responsibility that Dani doesn't even fully comprehend. So right. I think that definitely explains some of his behavior on this feeling that I am responsible for all these adult things. And yet I am still treated like a child. That's not Dani's fault. She doesn't fully understand all of it. He is still a kid.
We're special. We grow up faster.
I do really like their conversation, though. I like that whole talk on his bed about the concept of found family,
in our life.
And that, like,
mostly anyway,
because of this, you are special, and that you get to pick who the adults that you surround yourself with are. Sort of. I mean.
Yeah,
I like that. I like as a silver lining to the horrible tragedy of losing the people that created you.
Yeah, I don't think we knew before this week's episode that Dani she's not literally an orphan, but she said she lost her dad, and then her mom was pretty checked out.
Basically,
right?
Seems like she was an alcoholic, and not a mother essentially.
Yeah. But I agree. That was great. This is one of those, like, very clever writing things, I think, where we actually just like and admire Dani a lot more, because she had to scold them, and even if maybe in that moment I would have just let the kid have a glass of wine, the way she is able to recover from the scolding is really, really beautiful, where she's just like, hey, I understand. They have a heart-to-heart. It actually ends up deepening their relationship, and then she goes and she has a heart-to-heart with Flora, and, like, it turns a moment of conflict into a moment of growth, and that's just good, parenting. Basically, she's sort of acting as their surrogate parent.
Yeah, she stops the bad behavior immediately and doesn't allow it. And then she speaks with Miles like he is kind of like, I think she speaks with Miles like he is a person who is capable of understanding these. Like, I don't want to say she speaks to him like an adult, because I don't think that's necessarily true, but she speaks to him with respect and kindness and with an assumption that he can understand and process these things. Right. And so maybe that is just speaking to him like an adult, but, she handles the situation, I think, perfectly, actually.
Because fundamentally, Miles wants to be treated like an adult, and her reaction to that is, okay, then I'm not going to let you get drunk. I'm going to speak to you like an adult, and that's actually more respectful.
Absolutely,
if a little bit patriarchal.
You really just want to get kids drunk on wine? Are your kids just running around drunk all the time?
No, I'm a hypocrite here. I don't give my kids any alcohol, but I advocate for giving fictional children fictional alcohol because Miles deserves it. Damn it!
My dad handled this wonderfully when I asked him for a sip of his beer, and he said, "Yeah, sure." And then I got a sip of it, and it was the most vile, disgusting thing I've ever tasted, because you're a child and it's beer, and beer is objectively terrible, especially when it's Coors Light, my father's beer of choice. So worked perfectly. Never asked for more beer.
See, that didn't work so well for me, because I think it was Corona with me, and Corona is pretty sweet and crisp and tasty.
But the first time you had Corona, I feel like beer is an acquired taste in general. Like, I like it okay now, but I don't even know if my first Corona would have been like, oh man, that's good shit.
I don't know. I think I did like it. I think if anything, I like beer less now, because it's not forbidden,
Well, doesn't it also give you headaches?
Well, there's that. I probably have horrible associations with it built up over years of pain. But other than that,
Yeah. Yeah. I don't even remember what we were talking about. Oh,
talking about
giving
Miles,
children wine.
Miles deserving wine. But yeah, anyway, I just, I thought that was a nice sort of thematic moment. I mean, there's even this idea of like, the corrupting influence of Quint upon Miles, and it's like,
yeah, Peter would give me wine. Yeah,
Peter would give me wine, and not necessarily that causing Dani to say no, but since we associate that with Quint, we're like, oh, okay, then that's bad. We shouldn't do that.
I mean, like, gosh, Hannah's like immediate reaction to that is like, Jesus, I don't want to talk about Peter fucking Quint anymore.
Yeah,
like she hates this man so much, understandably. But that was good stuff.
Yeah.
How do you feel about Owen's favorite food being shepherd's pie? How do you feel about this? What's your opinion? I want to get the Matt Freeman opinion on shepherd's pie.
I like shepherd's pie. I think. I don't know. I don't. Have I ever had shepherd's pie?
I mean, probably.
I did that thing where I answered the question as if you had said chicken pot pie, which I really like. That's not the same thing as shepherd's pie. So, I mean, it looks like the same concept as chicken pot pie, but with beef and completely different seasonings.
Well,
maybe I've never had shepherd's pie.
A shepherd's pie is lamb because shepherd.
Oh,
a beef. A beef pie is a cottage pie.
Okay. Well, this has been Culinary Corner with Matt and Scott.
I mean, it's like I love it because on the one hand, like if you heard that like a professionally Paris trained chef that their favorite meal was shepherd's pie, you might be a little suspect. But then the realization that like this was the meal his mother made for him when she had to go out of town because it keeps very well, which is it's true.
Mm.
I think my association with shepherd's pie is bad because one time my wife made a healthy version of a shepherd's pie with instead of mashed potatoes on top, it had mashed cauliflower on top, and I do not like cauliflower, and I hated that, and that association is still in my head.
I'm sorry, Scott. Yeah, I don't think I've ever had it, but no, I like your, and also like the reason why it's his favorite is distinctly not like because it's delicious. It's like because he has this memory associated with love and being cared for and his mother.
Yeah.
And
also it's like gravy, potatoes, and meat.
Right.
So like it's like it's good.
Yeah, right.
It's just not a fancy dish.
Yes, I agree. I'm sure there are fancy versions of it, but it seems like it would be good no matter what.
Yeah, I'm sure someone in France is making like a deconstructed shepherd's pie.
Yeah.
Some ridiculous stuff. Yeah. All right. So speaking of Owen, I think we have to talk about Owen's big moment. So again, this is a side character in the show so far that I think mostly played for comedic relief. I think one of the things that Flanagan says is Flanagan himself really loves terrible, awful puns. Mm-hmm. And he used the Owen character in this show to like get all his terrible, awful puns out. And so Owen, like throughout the show so far, has basically played comedic relief and also like adorable relationship with Flora and silly, dumb puns. And that's really it. And this is the episode where I think he and the actor Raul Coley, who performs him, really got to step up. Because, we talked about this. This is what Flanagan does. This is what the people with work with Flanagan do. They're going to, if you are cast in one of his productions, you're going to get a moment. And this, it could not be like Owen could have more moments before the end of the show, but this is so far his big moment where he gets to do this wonderful, wonderful monologue about his mother. That I think performance wise, incredible. The writing is so strong. I am lucky enough that I have not experienced like a parent going through something like this. My grandmother did have Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, just a wonderful cocktail of destruction. And I really think this was written pretty expertly from the perspective of someone who feels that this like push and pull of loving a person and this person being the most important person in your life, but feeling the burden of having to take care of them. Like that line, she seems so small at the end, but still so heavy
at the end,
right? Like that is so like, and then she was my anchor, but then eventually became my bird. Like the kind of the dual use of anchor, right? She was the person that anchored me in my life, but also an anchor is a thing that can hold you back, that can prevent you from going forward. And so like, I think it's just incredibly well written and powerful. And man, it's like my favorite moment of the episode for sure. I loved this.
Yeah, me too. I love this character. He's so lovable. I mean, many of the characters in the show are just very lovable, but he's the most like. We commented last episode how he's just always there to brighten up the mood when he sees people being down. He wants to cheer them up. He's just loving and giving in that way. And then it was really hard to watch him get like devastated by the news last episode. And then we see the aftermath of this, and he even while he's giving that speech, he's sort of trying to like bear up and turn it into like a little bit of a celebration where he's like, me and my close friends are going to have this celebration around the bonfire. Yeah. And he's kind of, hamming it up almost while still being sad. Yeah. But because he just can't not try to cheer everyone up. I love that. Love that about him. The whole bonfire thing.
That was, again, very clever writing of, that's why they call it a bonfire, isn't it? As I was saying, that's why they call it a bonfire.
Yeah. That's great.
It's one of those things that, like, I mean, this is, I think, maybe a place where we could talk about a larger topic, which is like, this show is I think more than Hill House, like a character study hangout show. Mm-hmm. Like, I think Hill House was really interesting. Like, it's definitely it was a show that like was firmly rooted in character, and like character was the driving force of the show. But like, I think you pointed this out maybe in the first or second episode, is like, we still in Hill House had like a drive of like, Nell has died, the family is gathering, there's one event that's kind of driving the narrative forward. This show so far, like a good question is like, what is Bly Manor about? And I don't mean themes. I mean like from a plot perspective. It's just like, what are we ultimately driving to? I mean, there's threads, right? We could talk about all these threads between characters and events. We don't know what's going on with Peter Quint's ghost. Like, does he have, like, is he dangerous? Is there something going on with Peter and Jessel? I mean, we know that like, Flora was scared enough by the idea of them to demand Miles come home as soon as possible, and Miles had to like murder a bird to get back. So like, we know it's something to do with that, but like, more than anything, this is just like all these people stuck in a house. They all have their shit. They're all haunted by something, and it's just like, go. So like, that's what I mean when I say like a hangout thing. And and I think that's really interesting in just like thinking about things like Owen. Like, I think the reason I brought this up was like, where does he go from here, right? Like, he's free of his burden now technically, but he has another thing anchoring him here, and that is Hannah. But as you said, like, the indication here is like, I'm not gonna be able to like take you and flee and we live a wonderful happy life as I am a 4-star chef in Paris. Like, so where does his story go, and where the other story go, and where is this all driving and leading to? And I want to be clear, I'm not saying this is a criticism of the show. Like, I love hangout character driven shows, but I think I do wonder if when people like compare Hill House to Bly Manor, as they're wont to do, like, that's one of the differences, right? Is that like, despite everything, there was a driving narrative in Hill House of like, what happened right that night. When are these kids going to get together to go battle whatever it was? Bly Manor really doesn't have that yet.
Yeah, it's more that we're invested in a bunch of different micro mysteries, or not micro, but none of them are the central mystery. We wondered from the beginning, what was it that drove Dani to come here? We wondered from fairly early, but not quite the beginning, what happened to Jessel and Quint, and we still only know half of that.
Yeah,
we only know the first half of that story, and then etc. Like each of the characters has their own little mystery that we're invested in. So it's interesting because it's not that it's like it's not propulsive, right? We're being drawn on by our investment in all these questions, but there's no central obvious question, which it's kind of like I think the closest thing to a central obvious question, if I think about it, is probably the central obvious question of the turn of the screw, which is like, what is actually going on with these kids and these ghosts?
Yeah.
Like, what is the nature of this thing that is happening? Are the kids, because we still don't know at all. Like we practically started this conversation talking about the idea that like, yeah, they're trying to prevent Dani from running into this ghost, but why? And are they protecting Dani? Are they doing this on behalf of the ghosts? Right? There's just so many things that we want to know, right? I want to know. I'm invested in finding out. So yeah. Anyway, I just agree with you. It's just very interestingly, differently structured. It doesn't have that core that the previous one did.
And I think one of the results of that is when the plot is so, I don't want to say bare bones because it's there and there's a lot of stuff happening, but is like not the central focus. You get moments in when you do that in TV, you get moments where you just get these characters all hanging out. And so here we are in episode 4, and we've seen these characters kind of just being with each other so much throughout the show so far that we get the bonfire scene. We get these characters joking around and playing with each other, and all that rapport is built up and all of that is earned to the point where like Owen is giving this speech about a woman that we've never met, right? We have no emotional attachment to Owen's mother as a person or character, that she doesn't exist for us. But she exists for Owen, and we know Owen so well, and we understand Owen so well, and we understand Owen's relationship with Hannah, and Owen's relationship with Jamie, and Owen's relationship with Dani, and Owen's relationship with the children, and all of these complicated things, and the way he feels trapped here, but also he loves these people, and the burden and the guilt of that, and all these things have been set up through just all this time with this character, because we're not worried about mysteries or plots, or we are, but it's like, I think, backgrounded to the character, that all this stuff feels so wonderfully earned, and you're just in the scene. You're just totally in the scene. And that's why I think you just, the bonfire scene jumped out to you, is because we know all these 4 people standing around this bonfire, even though we don't know their mysteries yet, which we don't for half of them. We don't know their background. We don't know how they got here. We don't know why they're still here. We know them, and we care about them. And so it all works. All of it. All of it.
Yeah, I agree. That's kind of the central and only thing that matters.
Yep. And that is why this is a good show.
Yes.
The end. I think I am getting down to all the things I did want to make sure we talked about on this episode, though.
I've gotten through my list. I think you mentioned to me earlier when we were talking amongst ourselves that there, I was asking, where does the name Edmund come from?
Oh yeah.
Her fiance, and I was like, Edmund just sounds like a very Henry Jamesian name, and you said that he did write a story called Sir Edmund Orme, and then you also mentioned that he also wrote a story called Owen Wingrave.
Yeah,
which so like we didn't read either of those, so we have no idea. I don't have no idea what they're about, but at least it seems like, yeah, these are plausibly places where the writers got the idea for the names, at least.
Yeah, I mean, I think Flanagan said in his commentary actually that he took the name of the character Owen and then Wingrave for the last name of the family from that story, Owen Wingrave. Like, I mean, this is the kind of fun thing where, like, I think we've so far through these 4 episodes seen the moments where these short stories interact and intersect with this overarching story that is Bly Manor. But like, also when you're just playing the game of like, I am adapting Henry James stories, I need names of characters. Well, might as well just grab and pull from all these different things. It's fun. Sure.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah.
I do too. Yeah, that was all. Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to point out in your notes here, you wrote, ha ha ha, get fucked, Edmund. I just want to make sure everyone knows that.
That was my emotional reaction to Edmund getting hit by a truck out of nowhere.
I mean, I think we were a little rough on Edmund. I do think that the tragedy of this whole thing is that it's really nobody's fault, right? Like, he loved her. Maybe he was a little possessive. I think that's fair. But like, it's not her fault that she's gay and just was working through and processing that. It's not his fault that he didn't know. Although, I don't know, maybe he should have been, like, we talked about the glasses thing and how he's blind and no, I can see you. And he was wrong about that. Maybe he didn't see or didn't want to look or was a little blind to the truth of her. Because I mean, like, this is a weird thing when, like, obviously the point of these scenes is for us to show that Dani is very uncomfortable and overwhelmed by this whole situation. But like, Victoria Pedretti just such a good job in these flashbacks of being like you immediately are like, oh, she doesn't want to be here. She doesn't like any of this. And it's like, so it's hard for me to then go, how the fuck didn't Edmund notice any of this? Right.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think that's what we said is like, he didn't want to see it. He wanted her to be the character in his story that he needed for his own ego validation.
Yeah.
And it was really inconvenient and annoying that she was not going to do that. And did not feel a lot of empathy for him in the moment of his death. Hence the laughing at him.
Yeah, I will say, if any of the people out there are bristling and upset that we are not more sympathetic to Edmund, I will point you out to the scene in the restaurant where a waiter comes to deliver food and drink 2 times, and Dani turns to the waiter and says, thank you, both times.
Thank
you know what Edmund doesn't do? He doesn't say thank you a single time.
Yep.
And everyone knows the best way to tell the quality of a person is how they treat waitstaff. And so Edmund sucks, Dani rules, the end.
Deserve to be hit by a truck.
I bet the truck was driven by the waiter. Just like, fuck this guy. Didn't say thank. Like, Edmund gave a 10% tip, like 100%, 10%, maybe less.
I think you're right.
He probably forgot to tip because he was so distraught by his marriage ending suddenly.
Or at least he was using that as an excuse for not tipping. He was like, I can get away with not tipping today.
I will say, like, I know you know this, and probably some of the audience knows this. I was engaged at one point in my life, and then that engagement ended not by my choice, very suddenly and out of the blue. So like, I feel like I am primed to be like an Edmund sympathizer, and I do feel a little bit of sympathy for him as a character, but I think it's a testament to how well the show is doing in the creating the things between the lines that I am not like fully like blindly like, no, this guy did nothing wrong. Screw this girl. I can't believe she did this to him. That's really fucked up. I think it shows the show is doing a really good job because I also did not see any of this coming. And then in retrospect was like, oh,
yeah. I think I like that. That's, I'm sort of being tongue in cheek, is like, it is very relatable. So this is kind of how I always get with like the villainous characters, where I'm like, yeah, of course I can relate. Of course I can relate to the negative aspects of this character. Yeah. That's why they exist as a character, is to reflect our negative tendencies.
Sure.
But then like I've grown past that, and so now I make fun of him and say that he deserves to die because I'm I'm rejecting that as like that. I'm not like that anymore, right? So,
you hear that, Edmund? You deserve to die, and also leave her the fuck alone, dude.
Yeah, right. I mean, it also, that's a good point. It doesn't help our sympathy for him that he's literally haunting her and driving her mad.
Yeah,
like, come on, dude, just move on to the afterlife. There's plenty of fish in the sea in the afterlife.
In the sticks.
Yeah, there you go. It's good.
All right. I think that's everything. I do want to say, like, there's a very really distinct cut from Dani in the wedding dress to Dani with her funeral garb on. Like, we go from back in time to present day. And I found that cut like I know I opened the episode saying there was nothing distinct from this director, and now I'm just directly contradicting that. But like, I found that cut and the transition there really powerful. It also, like, her hair is tied back, and then it moves to when she is looking down at her in her funeral dress. Like, her hair like is different from the way I've seen Dani's hair. Like, it's very fluffed up and it's kind of covering her face in this really distinct way. And I was just kind of taken aback by the abruptness of the transition of showing how different she is, and not just the color switch between the dresses, but like the whole thing was just very abrupt and different.
Yeah. Well, and she doesn't look like herself, right?
Yeah.
And
exactly.
that's kind of the vibe you get from her performance is like, this isn't her, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Also, I have one nitpick question for you. I asked you this before, so you know what's coming, but like, who is going to watch the children?
Uh-huh.
So we have here is like, Dani is dressed in her funeral outfit. She is planning on going to the funeral. Jamie comes to get her, to collect her to go to the funeral. And then and only then she's told, Owen said you didn't have to come if you don't want to, which like, like both Hannah and Dani take them up on that. But like, if this was Scott Daly saying, you don't have to come to the funeral if you don't want to, the hidden implication would be, I want you to come to the funeral.
I expect you at the funeral, yeah.
But Owen is not me. Owen is perhaps a more honest person and genuinely, like, he doesn't at all seem bothered by the fact that they didn't come, right? So Dani was planning on going to the funeral. She then goes down to the chapel and sees Flora doing grave rubbings, and Flora's like, "Oh, you're not going to the funeral?" And she's like, "No, I decided not to." Like, okay. Miles, who knows where the fuck he is, just running around. Right. Then she goes into the chapel and finds Hannah Gross in there, and then says, "Oh, Hannah, you're not going to go to the funeral?" And they have the whole scene about Hannah she has her own way of honoring the dead, and she doesn't really want to go to a funeral. She didn't want to deal with that. So what was the plan for the children, Matt? Who was watching the children?
Yeah. So you did ask this earlier, so I had time to think about it. And I like the answer being that the characters all kind of forgot about the children. I mean, you point out correctly that Flora was doing grave rubbings and Miles was God knows where. So like, they already weren't keeping an eye on the kids already. So them just not physically being on the premises couldn't have been that much worse.
Yeah. And I mean, to be fair, they're 7 and 9, right? So like, I don't think they need like constant every moment of every second of the day adult supervision. Like,
yeah.
But I feel like the plan should have been that someone needs to be in the house when the children are in the house. I don't know if I would trust a 9-year-old to babysit a 7-year-old.
That's. I mean, it's interesting because the kids kind of seem to have free reign, right? Like, nobody knew where Flora was. She stumbles upon her doing grave rubbings.
Well, Matt, she's got to get him in before the end of the season.
Uh-huh.
Which, like, why?
What? Right. Yeah. This is such an Addams Family little girl. This is the proper Wendy Addams or what's her name? Wednesday. Sorry. Wednesday Addams. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Right? It's the 80s. It's the 80s.
Yeah.
There's my answer.
I mean, I can definitely say that as a 7-year-old, I wandered around my neighborhood unsupervised for hours. So yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
I'm just a little surprised that no one seemed to know what the plan was for having an adult present. If they had all just gone to the funeral.
Yeah. I mean, now that it's the 80s explanation has occurred to me, I am actually just going to double down on that because I feel like it's just like, why would someone need to be here?
Yeah. I also think they're 8 and 10 because they were 7 and 9 when Jessel interviews for the position. Okay. So yeah, 10-year-old. Yeah. You can leave a 10-year-old alone. They'll be fine.
Good. They're good.
Like, they're going to get in any trouble.
No.
All right. That was all I had.
Yep, me too.
So yeah, like I said, next week's episode is going to be a big one, Matt. It is titled The Altar of the Dead. Ooh, that has implications. We know that short story we read. And so it's a big important one. Episode 5, it is our halfway point of the season. And so we will get to it next week.
Yes, I guess I'll predict that that's the Mrs. Gross episode.
I think that's a fair assumption based on her connection to the literal altar of the dead.
All right.
Before we go, we do have some discussion questions to answer and ask. So first, we have our question from a couple weeks episode. This was our episode on the pupil, which was, for those that don't remember, because it was so long ago, this is the Miles at Boarding School episode. So what was our question, Matt? I think it relates to this.
The question was, what's your favorite boarding school story?
Yeah.
So first from Pear Jane, they say, sticking with my YA recommendations, dark academia started early for me with Lois Duncan's Down a Dark Hall. A girl is recruited to begin attending the Blackwood School for Girls with only 3 other students. As the school's odd classes, odd hours, and odd staff all begin to add up, our heroine Kit investigates why they're all really there. And spoiler, the girls are involuntarily channeling the spirits of dead artists so the school's owners can make a buck with the forgeries. My 21st century... She says, my 21st century brain just made the connection to trafficking for the first time. Oh, dear.
Jesus.
How dark. As a kid, it fed into all my favorite daydreams, being whisked away to a special school, being away from parents, developing undiscovered talents, and living in a giant Gothic mansion. Of course, it also brought all my worst nightmares, scary noises at night, ill-intentioned adults, parents too distant to help you, and living in a gigantic Gothic mansion. Once again, we are faced with the question, does the culture you consume as a child define you or simply demonstrate who you really are?
Well,
and of course, the answer is yes.
I was going to say the same thing. We talk too much. But yeah, definitely yes.
Never read that or
Me neither.
heard of it, to be honest, but sounds fun.
I have not. But that sounds interesting. Yeah. Except for the trafficking metaphor part. Don't like that.
Don't like that at all.
Next we have DJ Nadelko, who says, my favorite boarding school story takes me back to my childhood and a line that for some reason I've never forgot. I'd rather eat a bowl of bats than spend a day with Carmelita Spats. This comes from a series of unfortunate events, Book 5, The Austere Academy. The Baudelaire, yes. I've seen these movies and shows before. I know how to pronounce this. The Baudelaire orphans end up in yet another disastrous setting. There are so many highlights of hilarity to mention here, but I'll just name a few. Carmelita eating orphans' cake sniffers as an insult always gave me a laugh. Carmelita calling the orphans cake sniffers as an insult always gave me a laugh as a kid. I don't know why I found that so funny. Principal Nero making the orphans sleep out in a shack rather than in the dorms, attending his nightly violin concert, and he hires the baby as his admin assistant. And of course, Count Olaf disguised as the gym teacher starting the SOAR program, special orphan running exercises, which the siblings have to participate in each night. This is only book 5 of 13. It's really fun, dreadful series I would recommend for kids, although Lemony Snicket would advise to never pick these books up off the shelf. Yeah, I've never read these books, but I watched the Jim Carrey movie, and then I think, didn't they make a Netflix show years ago? I definitely watched that too. And I've enjoyed both versions of the series, but I've never read it.
I think I've only seen the Jim Carrey version. I don't think it's the kind of thing I would have picked up as a kid because I would have just been very literal and been like, oh, the book says it's going to be bad and unfun. Then I won't read it. Thanks for warning me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I get it. It sounds good.
I feel like this might be something I end up getting for my son as he learns to read and see what he thinks of it.
Yeah, I haven't gotten to them for my kids either. I don't think they've read any of them as far as I know.
Yeah.
Novel Garage 6755 says, in Peter Straub's Shadowland, we follow a teenage Tom Flanagan, a different and fictional Flanagan who looms almost as large in my heart as our very own Mike Flanagan, to the Carson School where he meets and takes under his wing his new best friend, underdeveloped but brilliant Del Nightingale. Tom's dad is dying, and Del's parents are already dead when we meet him. So the two bond over that, as well as their common determination to become professional magicians. Del's uncle, Coleman Collins, is the world's greatest magician, or so Del and his uncle claim. In truth, Collins is alcoholic and sinister, and so the Carson School and many of the students and and so is the Carson School and many of the students and staff of the boys' school. Leading up to the Christmas break, Tom's father dies, and a disaster at the school leaves Tom with nowhere to go but with Dell to his uncle's vast New Hampshire property, Shadowland, where he's certain he needs to be to protect his friend. Instead, he's pulled into the battle of his life and Dell's, along with the battle for the throne of magic, both light and dark. Populating Shadowland are characters from every imaginable fable and fairy tale, leading the reader to ask, is the Carson School real? Is Shadowland? With Straub's poetic prose, we can never be completely sure what is real. Every boarding school reminds me of Shadowland, and I believe there's no The Talisman or fairy tale without this book first. Hell, I'd argue there's no Harry Potter without Shadowland first.
Oh, wow.
That's a fascinating claim since I've never heard of this. I mean, we did have our Peter Straub kick, obviously.
Yeah.
Very curious about this now.
We read, obviously, both of the King books, and then we also read A Ghost Story for book club as well. But I want to check this one out.
Yeah.
It sounds... If it is as influential and important as this is great. And I do generally like boarding school stories, so yeah, I'll definitely check this out.
Yeah, me too.
Bent Westward says, for the discussion question, I'm going to go with Rushmore. This movie put Wes Anderson on the map and is awesome because it blends quirky humor with heartfelt emotion. The film centers on Max Fisher, an eccentric and overachieving student at the Rushmore Academy. Despite a poor background, Max's passion for extracurriculars leads to a hilarious and poignant partnership, then rivalry with a wealthy industrialist played by Bill Murray. Its offbeat characters, clever dialogue, and visually distinctive scenes make it both funny and surprisingly touching. The soundtrack, pacing, and performances elevate this film into a cult classic. I love Wes Anderson. I love this movie deeply. It's one of my favorites, so I completely agree with this.
Yes. I mean, it's funny. I, for a second, was like, is that a boarding school movie? And it's like, yeah, he's wearing the uniform the entire movie. It's funny. Yeah, great pick.
Maybe you're like one of those schooner ship captains, Max. You're married to the sea. Yes, but I've been out to sea for a long time. He's 15.
That's great.
I love this movie so much.
Me too. Baby King Digger Sam says, so many boarding schools to pick from. Professor Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters, Hogwarts, Rushmore. For me, I've got to seize the day to recognize Dead Poets Society. What a great film, and it still holds up today. Super cute boys with the words of Lord Byron dripping from their tongues. Swoon. That's not how I processed the movie when I was a teenager, but to each their own.
I'm shocked.
Sam.
Yeah, I love Dead Poet Society. I love this movie. I know it's like a little saccharine, but I just adore this movie. I think Robin Williams, like the seize the day boys scene, I just love. And then the which is the poem, like who's the poet that says I can't even remember the line, so I'm not even gonna say it, but this is as close as I got to liking poetry when I was younger, because I just liked the poems they were talking about here.
Sure.
But
yeah, I liked it. It too. I don't think I loved it as much as you, but I liked it.
What was the boarding school one that just came out a couple of years ago that got nominated for the Oscar? That we watched.
The Holdovers.
The Holdovers. Thank you.
We really had fun with that one.
Movie. Yeah, it's a great movie.
Yeah, love that. I saw like one of those like YouTube videos that's like just a bunch of clips from it, and I was like, oh yeah, I love this.
Great movie.
All right, just the other answers briefly from Hans Backe R23PO. They chose book 1 of Red Rising, where the Institute trains upper-class golds to become leaders and warriors in what's basically Hunger Games in space. Almost perfect timing on this discussion question answer. The reason I say that is we're going to be releasing this episode the week after the book club.
Yeah.
But from Scott and I's temporal perspective, we are holding a book club covering this very book, Red Rising, the first book of the trilogy, this Friday. From the listener's perspective, it will be already out. So
yeah, you can check out the VOD on YouTube, though, if you want to hear us talk about Red Rising. It's the best conversation we've ever had.
It is. I finished reading it already, and I really enjoyed the book. So go listen to what I thought about it over there.
Yeah, I am 25% to go. Almost there.
Kat Shepsut reads, first of all, great username, Kat Shepsut, says, A Deadly Education with Naomi Novik for its unique dark academia with a grouchy kick-ass female protagonist with honorable mention to A Great and Terrible Beauty. Cool. Haven't heard of those, but sounds fun. And Chat Ringa selects the 1991 film Toy Soldiers, where troubled youth at Regis boarding school use their troublemaking talents to fight Colombian terrorists holding the school hostage. Holy shit. That sounds perfect.
Yeah. I've heard of that film before. I have not seen Toy Soldiers. I need to fix that. All right. Well, that was it, right?
That was it.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone who sent those in. I saw a few Dead Poet Societies. I think there were some YouTube comments as well that picked Dead Poet Society, which I support wholeheartedly.
Yes.
All right, Matt, what is the question for our next episode?
What's your favorite example of a story where those innocent kids are actually just in the right and the adults are oblivious and dumb and the kids have to protect them? I mean, there's a lot of stuff in this space, really. I mean, you could take even stuff like Harry Potter, ultimately, like where it's just like the kids are the protagonists, but try to emphasize, the idea of the adults being oblivious.
Yeah.
Do whatever you want. Have fun.
Yeah.
Go nuts.
I love it. Yeah, I think this ties in pretty perfectly with this clear reveal that Flora, something we suspected but didn't know for sure, but that Flora and Miles are actively working to keep people safe from spooky ghosts in Bly Manor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. All right, folks, that is going to do it for us this week. As we said, next week, episode 5 of The Haunting of Bly Manor, The Altar of the Dead. Matt predicts it's a Hannah Gross episode. We will see.
All right. I was trying to read your expression there and see if you were gonna give me a hint. Nope, he never does. He's like a sphinx. I'm gonna keep using that expression.
How many times are you gonna call people sphinxes?
2 in one episode, which is
it's a lot.
Which is a lot more than average. Remember, you can reach us via email at flanaganswakepod@gmail.com, over on X at flanaganswake19, and of course, the subreddit at reddit.com/r/doofmedia is the best place to hang out and leave the answer to those discussion questions. Don't forget, you can watch us on video on YouTube or on Spotify. And please leave us a comment.
Yeah, please do. We've been getting a lot of comments lately. I love them. Keep them up, please. And please buy some amazing merchandise. Once again, I'm going to plug the Mike Flanagan Says Hi Mangled Hand shirt. One of my favorite things we have in the store right now. As we all know, Mike Flanagan loves to destroy a hand. He does it as many times as he possibly can. We've yet to see a destroyed hand in this show, but I honestly don't remember if we get one, but I'm just going to say yes, probably. But please check out doofmedia.myshopify.com where you can get that shirt along with a bunch of other great merchandise. The Crockett Island Cat Cafe mug, also one of my favorites. That's for Midnight Mass. You'll all understand that here in just a few months.
That's right.
Yeah.
If you like Flanagan's Wake and you want to support us, then please consider heading over to patreon.com/doofmedia and checking out the available awards over there. We do regular bonus podcasts on that feed. There's a huge backlog of me and Scott talking about previous Stephen King adaptation films and TV shows, and you can also vote on the Doof Movies website and determine what movies we're going to cover on the Doofcast. Upcoming, we have Sinners, which should already be out by the time you're listening to this.
Yes.
So, but go check that out and pick your favorites.
Yeah, absolutely. But of course, if you cannot afford to join us on Patreon, we totally understand why. We're going to ask you guys again to keep sharing the podcast, though. We are growing, and that is almost entirely because of you. So please keep that going. Keep sharing. Keep telling people about us, and keep leaving those rating and reviews. We don't have any new ones to read this week, but we do appreciate the almost 100 of you that have left those on iTunes at this point, which is That's a lot. That's a lot of people to take the time to do stuff like that. So we appreciate that, and please keep them up.
Thank you.
All right, folks, that is it. We will see you back here next week for The Altar of the Dead, where we will certainly light a candle for our poor lost filmmaker, Mr. Mike Flanagan.